movies, pop culture, and TV, we always see the idea of souls and spirit worlds. The idea that something is out there after we die and continues to inhabit the world. But how would it be if that really existed? Let's talk about that. I feel like maybe a part of us sees things that we're not supposed to see.
Yeah.
Kind of like a glitch in the system.
Mhm.
Like you see something that you're not supposed to see, and your brain reverts back once you're done with it.
Yeah, true.
I once had an experience similar to
Really?
that.
Let's hear it.
What happened was, I was this was like late in the woods at the time. Me and my friend were we're just like going around, and we just decided, you know what, let's go down this nature trail. And at first, it seemed like a terrible idea. It still was a terrible idea, mind that. But it was late at night. We were kind of like driving down. And I decided reluctantly, okay, fine, let's go. I had to be home soon anyways, but I just decided to do it just for the sake of adventure, I guess. And at the time, what I didn't know was it was actually hunting season, and I didn't know that it was technically trespassing at the point unless you were a hunter in full gear and all, obviously like that. And we weren't. We were dressed in extremely dark clothing, and this was kind of near night. Like it wasn't night, obviously. It was evening, but it was dark enough that the visibility is extremely low.
Yeah.
And in an instant, what I feel like I saw is that I saw the silhouette of a deer. I feel like I didn't see the deer. I just saw a ghost of a deer. And then I heard a gunshot. And this is something that my friend can also ascertain to. Like there was a gunshot that went off.
That's really weird.
That ghost of the deer disappeared. And at that point, I was so freaked out that I told him what I saw. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. I just heard a gunshot. That's why I was scared. And I said, no, it's because I just saw the illusion, and then I heard a gunshot and it was gone.
That's really strange. So does it mean like animals have spirits then?
I think that's the conclusion.
I think that's a good conclusion.
I feel like it is. I feel like
I never heard anything like that before, actually.
Could it have been an albino deer? Or like
I don't feel like that. I feel like it wasn't like a ghost. It was a brown deer, but it was like translucent to some extent. It had like a blue light around it, not like a heavy
like aura kind of around it.
Yeah, it wasn't like, it looked kind of like a hologram almost. Like I knew it wasn't real because it wasn't making noise, and I just kind of just saw it, and it was gone.
That's really interesting.
And to me, I feel like it was like my mind, like kind of like filling in a gap of what had happened, or a spirit trying to show what happened, because obviously we can't travel through time in the past, but in a way that spirit was setting up with the sound of the gunshot probably happening somewhere else to tell a story of its life almost.
Wow. Bro, are you filming right now? Like, I'm not cool with that, man. Do you put it down? No? Bro, like, seriously, man, like, you can't be doing this shit. We're just trying to play some Xbox, but I'm like, come on. That's crazy.
I never had an experience like outside or anything like that. But as far as the mind and the dark and what happens, there's this one night where I put a coat on a vacuum cleaner. Because I was too lazy to hang it on a hook, which was 10 feet away.
6-year-old.
I wish I was 6. I was 12. I'm still lazy, but
He's still lazy. Don't worry, guys. I'm still lazy.
It's genetic, isn't it? It runs through your system, believe me.
I also drank a big cup of water, and I kind of had to pee, but I was too lazy to go to the bathroom before bed, so I just went to bed. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, it's time to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
Then I walked downstairs and I saw the coat on the vacuum. I was like, we've got an intruder in the house. And I flipped my shit. But I've never seen anything like super weird.
Yeah.
Although, okay, so there's this one time where I was living, We had just moved into a new house. Like, this is my first day there. Everyone leaves. I'm there alone, okay? And that same day, first time alone in this new house, I was told about this string of robberies that was happening in the neighborhood next to us. And what would happen is people would break the car windows, take the garage door opener and open the garage, go in, take a TV or something, and then leave.
Okay.
So, I'm taking a poop, okay? And I'm just sitting there and I hear this, right, like a garage door opening. It's like, oh, there's a burglar in the house. What? And I'm in the bathroom. What am I supposed to do in this situation?
Corner at that point.
I was.
That's one of the things I worry about. I'm thinking, like, if someone is out to get me, sometimes I once had this thought, like, it was actually kind of similar to that. I was asleep, right? And basically my entire dream was that I was like some kind of like mafia target. Like I was targeting this large mafia strike going after me, but I woke up in the middle, not because it was like a nightmare or anything, but because I had to take a shit, honestly. So I was like sitting in the bathroom, and I was thinking, what happens if the mafia came after me right now? Like, I am a sitting duck. I'm sitting in the toilet, shitting in the toilet.
Yeah.
To be more specific, I can't do anything. What am I supposed to do? Like, run away? Like, it's not something that.
Pants around the ankles does make running very easy.
It's not. No. It's
fast
like
reactions.
It's like leg cuffs, honestly. Just like kind of holding you back. Like maybe a maximum 2 miles an hour. I can't see myself going anything above that. I cannot see myself going into a full sprint unless I can tear my khakis in the power of
Well, I'm sorry, let's you So
I'm sitting there, pants around the ankles. I can't run. So I'm like, all right.
Like little cuffs to your feet, right?
I was like, first question. I was like, do I finish pooping? Or is this like, am I being illogical right now? Am I hearing something else? But I decided it's time to cut the poop short. I got all back, prepared myself to sprint. And I'm just listening to the door. And on the other side of the door, I hear the rumbling stop. I'm like, okay, they're in the house. They're in the house. And because after I hear the rumbling, I hear like this, like something slamming, like maybe they broke the glass. I wasn't sure what it was. And so then I'm like, okay, I can either break the glass of the bathroom window because like it didn't have it couldn't open. They had just replaced it with this other one. So I was like, I could break the window and jump out the window and run for it, right?
Yeah.
Or I could go out, there's 2 bathroom doors. I could go out the other side, run out the front door. But here's what I decided to do. I was like, I'm just gonna open the door very quietly, sneak around the back, peek in the kitchen, see what's up, okay? So I did that. It was nobody. I was freaking out over nothing. What happened was there was a fan in the stove, and like it just turns on, and then there's a flap. So like that's all it was.
New house, I don't know what's going on with the sounds of it yet.
But it freaked me out. I was just like, what if that was a burglar and I died? And then I started thinking about death for a little bit.
Damn.
And like I was 15, but like I don't know, I didn't really think about death much until then.
Hey, that's emo stage for me. I was at 15, like I was like
hard
depressed little kid. I was like, ooh, like where's the Panic at the Disco at, right? Seriously, man, like I'm just trying to filter some water here, bro. Like I'm trying to do this for us, man. Like you gotta put the camera down.
Panic at the Disco has changed some.
I
would say.
Yeah, true.
From that, what I would say is that actually going off of that topic, I mean, as a kid, even now, I don't know the difference between the AC turning on and the garage door opening because the AC like the vent,
sound.
It's exactly above the garage door area. So
That's
like
really
when
funny.
I hear like a sound enveloped, then I think okay, either that's a garage door or the AC. But I think nowadays I've kind of figured it out because a garage door doesn't open for like 5 minutes. It's like a 30-second thing. It's open and the sound stops. That was the garage door.
Yeah.
Keeps going on. That's the AC.
I actually have a similar story with like shitting on the toilet and like thinking there's burglar coming in. I was in Cali on the medical license, so I could be smoking weed, but like I was smoking hella weed. It was such a great time. And I had a cart on me. I was just like smoking my cart in the bathroom, doing shit, like going through my Instagram, having a good old time.
Obviously.
And I was home alone. I'm in kind of a suburb area. It was nighttime. I hear like the door open. I swear, I heard the door open and I heard the door close. I'm like, shit, somebody's in here. I'm home alone. Like, who else could be here? Like this is really weird. I'm like starting to freak out. I'm like twitching. I'm like trying to take a poop. Like, hurry up. Get out of here. And I hear the dog start barking. I'm like, oh, I'm done. This is it. Like, I'm gonna die. Like, this is like the end of my life. Me on the toilet. It'd be like fucking Elvis Presley.
Oh, he died.
He did.
Yeah, it's rough way to go.
It's not very honorable. I'll tell you that much.
But no, I ended up like finishing the poop, and I got out there. I got a knife. I was like going down the house. I'm like, anybody in here?
She was going full man.
I was going full. I was ready to take some people out.
See, that worries me. Like, I wouldn't go melee, honestly.
Really?
I mean, like, if you have a knife in your hand, that means like if you see them, then you have to like fight them at close quarters.
Well, like here's the thing: if you have a knife versus a gun in close quarters, like the knife's gonna win.
That's agreed, but I feel like I'd rather have a gun because I can like keep my distance away from them. Like I'm not gonna say that like I need a gun for self-defense because I probably will not be in a situation where, and I'm pretty sure stuff like I don't know, like a bear repellent spray or something can definitely do the job as well. But I feel like having a knife, like if the lights turn on, you see the guy over there, you have a knife here. Will you charge at him? Will that be your instinct?
Zigzag.
What? How's that gonna help?
Like zigzag duck, you know?
You really think your body could do that in the series of panicked moments of you seeing an intruder?
Easily.
Oh, okay then. We got a Navy SEAL in here.
Watch out, guys. Like,
watch out.
hoorah, motherfuckers.
I don't know.
Because Marines. We'll give you that.
I'll take it.
As far as burglaries go, like, my concern is like, if I catch a burglar in the act, that seems like the most likely scenario of getting shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's the more like the dumb ones. Like they're the ones who are gonna get caught, and I feel like they're also gonna be the ones who are like yeah.
Like, cause like, do you think burglars get scared that they're gonna die? What the fuck, dude? Like, could you be against burglar and do self-defense?
I think that you could maybe scare them off. Okay, so this
you
is
can't use self-defense because
you're on their property.
You're on their property, and you can't. That's
okay.
actually something that was used in the recent trial of Amber Geiger. Do you
Really?
remember
I don't
who
know
she
this
was?
one. No.
Okay, you know, but there was a man named Botham Jean, Botham John. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
But he lived in his apartment, right? And Amber Geiger was a ex-police officer. She was a police officer in Dallas. She was off duty. I think you guys might have heard of it. Like it happened like a few months back. But she was maybe a little buzzed. It was unsure exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Mr. Jean lived on the floor below her, and she lived right above. Right? Yeah. So instead of going to her apartment, which is on the 4th floor, she went to the 3rd floor. And she tried opening that first door, which she thought was her apartment. She opened it and she saw Mr. John sitting in his sofa. It was his apartment, basically. And the first instinct she had was that he was a burglar. She drew her weapon and shot him dead.
Dang.
Botham John died in his own apartment that day, that fateful day. Amber Geiger was a police officer who obviously did it. She realized what had happened. She immediately called the police. The police showed up. And this became a sensational headline because...
Like, what do you do in that scenario?
One thing was Miss Geiger was a white female police officer, and Botham John was a black immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago. And this was his own apartment. But Miss Geiger believed that it was her apartment.
What did the charges end up, or what was the result of the case?
The end of the case, you might be kind of surprised to do this because most police officers typically do not get heavy charges because of various police loopholes as well as police support.
Yeah.
The prosecutor's office does work indeed with the police, but in this case, the prosecutor's office refused to comply.
Oh wow.
And what had happened was that the lead prosecutor, the head prosecutor for Dallas, instead took on the case himself. And in the end, Amber Geiger was charged for murder and was sentenced to 15 years in jail.
Damn.
And she started that jail sentence not near 1 month ago.
Wow, that's crazy.
And one of the arguments that was used was the stand your ground law. The idea that if it's your property and if you see someone trespassing, you have your right to stand your ground. But the problem was it wasn't her property. It was Mr. Jean's apartment. So in essence, the prosecution basically turned that against, said that had no bearing on the case at all, because it was the exact opposite of what stand your ground meant. Stand your ground would mean that Mr. Jean could shoot Miss Geiger, but instead it was the exact opposite way around.
That's crazy.
It's weird.
I was actually in my political science class, and one of the girls talking about a story like when a bunch of robbers broke into her house, and her like family did own guns, and apparently like she was like 10 years old at the time, like she's like youngling, and like she had a younger brother, and there's apparently like 3 guys broke into her house in the middle of the country, so like police weren't gonna be there anytime soon. Like it was just them alone with these robbers, and who knows what happened to the robbers? Like what do they have? Do they have white knives? Do they have guns? Do they have nothing? You never know. But apparently she went to her parents' gun safe, opened it up, and she took a shotgun out, like a big shotgun. Imagine like a little 10-year-old girl's like this big shotgun right here is ready for action. Like, could you imagine?
Dang.
That's crazy. But no, like she loads up a little bit and just like, you know how that sounds like, that sounds so ironic. Like you know that sound.
It's
It's
a large slug loaded
it's
in
like, you're
a
like,
chamber.
like that's the sound
Go
of death
here,
right there. You know?
You'll hear that. It's not a small bullet. It's full of pellets. I mean, it's not even a bullet itself. It's like a canister full of pellets that are shot out. Like,
that's scary. Well, apparently that sound alone just scared away the robbers.
Really?
Yeah. It's like the robbers like, oh, we're not fucking with this, and they just dipped.
because what I was thinking was that if she had shot the robbers with a shotgun at close range,
There'd be nothing left.
I think it would have traumatized me.
That would
Like
the
the gore and
Especially
There would be
that
nothing
at
left.
10, yeah.
there would be
No, like-
absolutely nothing left.
Well, that's like World War One. Was it World War One, or was like USA was like supposed to ban shotguns? We're like, hey, fuck you, we're gonna keep using them.
Germany, oddly enough, believed that shotguns were inhumane, and at the time, Germany was using
Oh my gosh,
like
Germany's doing crazy
chemical
stuff.
weapons.
Yeah.
They were using chemical weapons.
Freaking using the wind to blow like
Blow
gas, and
gas
the wind like
across.
goes the other direction. You're like, oh fuck, you think you're badass till the wind changes directions.
It was dangerous.
Oh man.
But yes, I mean, there are all kinds of wild cases like that. You know, speaking of kids, have you guys ever heard of the DL6 incident that happened in Los Angeles?
No.
This happened quite a long time ago, but it came back up recently. Well, by recently I mean 2008.
Yeah.
But it happened 15 years before 2008. So what happened was this actually happened and this is the wildest part. It's all a police / prosecutorial conspiracy. The whole idea was this man, right? This man was a defense attorney, Mr. Gregory Edgeworth. He was a defense attorney.
It's fun, man.
And he brought his son, Miles,
Yeah.
basically. Must have been like a take your son to work day. Not exactly like that, but he decided to bring him for this court case. This was the final day of a multi-day court case that he had against the veteran prosecutor, Von Karma. Manfred von Karma, I believe was his name. And he was a German man. I was just saying it because his last name. I was just, okay. But at the time, Mr. von Karma was like easily the best prosecutor, one of the most gifted prosecutors at the time. He was like a veteran. He was already he was like 30 years old, and he had like barely lost any cases, if not any. I'm not too sure about it, but Mr. Edgeworth was kind of he was like an okay defense attorney. But what had happened during the case was that there was a pivotal moment where he found a flaw in the prosecutor's statements, basically. And in the end, the prosecutor was handed like an enormous penalty, basically, and he won, and the defense attorney won the case, basically. But what had happened afterwards is that it was like a huge like rouse that happened. Like it was like a big event, obviously, and a lot of people were talking about it, and there were like signs of what's gonna happen to him, and like afterwards, like after the case and all that. So he stayed in the courthouse for a long time, right, and to sign like papers and everything, and saying that he was the defense attorney and like all kinds of legal stuff. Obviously, it happens.
Alright, dude, I got through. Sir, can you hurry up, please? I'm sorry. Can you really please? You gotta go faster. Thank you. Thank you. We gotta go. We gotta go. Thank you. Thank you. Get away from me.
So it was late at night. His son is still with him, right? And he needs to go back down. He's ready to leave. He's ready to go to the parking garage, get his car and all that. So the bailiff, him and his son are now all on an elevator. They're going down to the parking garage to get their car and to leave because it's been a long day. A lot of things have happened. They have to do a lot of stuff. And then at the exact time, it's California, so an earthquake hits. This was a huge earthquake.
Yeah.
Enough that what the elevator did basically is that it shook the line so much that the cords had to be tied immediately. So it just tied the cord down, so the elevator was just kind of dangling. And
that's scary.
As a result, the elevator has a self-stabilization unit basically that locks it in place with the cord or the channel that it follows on, right? But the problem was it wasn't on an actual floor, so you couldn't open the doors. It was just perfectly against a wall.
Yeah.
And it was sealed onto that wall, meaning that nobody had any oxygen at this time.
Oh.
They were calling on the elevator call button, basically calling for help. That like they're trapped inside this elevator. It's dangling. It's sealed off, and minutes go by. There's no response because the earthquake has obviously hit other areas and. Emergency medical teams were like responding and all kinds of stuff. They're sealed off, and what was happening was that they were losing consciousness. They were losing consciousness because they were oxygen deprived. They couldn't like think. They couldn't like breathe. They couldn't. Nothing would happen basically.
Yeah.
And this was the lawyer, Gregory Edgeworth, the bailiff. His name was Yanni Yogi, and the son, his name Miles, the defense attorney's son. And they were all just getting oxygen deprived. And what the son said was that my father and the bailiff started arguing because they were having like partial like mental breakdowns because they couldn't think. They were yelling like, "Stop stealing my air! Stop stealing my air!" His Miles basically said, "I saw something fall at my feet, and I was lucid myself, and I was angry at them for fighting. I threw whatever it was." Like against the elevator wall to make them stop fighting, right? And then I heard a bang, and then he just blacked out basically. He blacked out. He kind of felt himself going up a little bit. He blacked out. Yanni Yogi and the bailiff and the defense attorney also blacked out. And when emergency rescue teams came onto the scene, they found the lawyer Gregory Edgeworth dead. He had a bullet in his heart. Like with one shot, he was killed with a bullet to his heart.
Damn.
And what happened was that a lot of people believe that the son was the one who did it. He threw what must have been a pistol at the elevator and inadvertently shot his father while they were both unconscious.
That's crazy. Dang. That's insane.
But it goes even wilder than that. Because they couldn't make it, because it would be such an outcry that happened at like the office. Instead, the prosecution blamed the bailiff, Yanni Yogi, for the murder of Gregory Edgeworth, saying that he was the one, since he was being lucid, he was the one who brought his own gun and shot Mr. Edgeworth, basically. And it was indeed his gun. Like that was the only gun that was present on the scene. And basically what happened was it was a long trial where they tried to pin it on him, but his lawyer basically went around and said my client was so lucid he couldn't have done that. It was almost impossible. And so the question was, who did it? And there was no conclusive evidence that the son did it. So the trial was just a mistrial. It was declared a mistrial.
Yeah.
Nobody was charged with anything. But in the end, the son was like forever traumatized.
How? How did you find me? Leave me alone!
With what had happened, like the bailiff lost his job because they believed that he was like mentally like incapable of doing any of that. Like nothing happened. So that all happened, right? And it was a mistrial. And then 15 years later, it makes headlines once again because that bailiff was killed 15 years later, basically. And they tied it back to another guy who was at the scene, who was the defense attorney for him. So the question is, why would his defense attorney shoot him in like a case that was like 15 years old? It wasn't. So they looked back at all the files and they found there was a second bullet. There was a second bullet shot on the elevator door, basically. And when they found it on the elevator door, they found it that it was on a level. So the elevator did go up afterwards. It was on a level and there was a second bullet. And basically the question was, where is that second bullet? There is no second bullet. There couldn't be anything. Until an investigation. It was like a friend of one of the prosecutors, basically, who said that I know one of them harbors a secret, basically. And he was the prosecutor that prosecuted the case against that attorney 15 years ago, the guy who got handed the penalty. And what it turned out to be was that, long story short, when the kid threw the gun, it didn't hit his dad, it hit that prosecutor, sent a bullet to him, basically, Manfred von Karmer. It sent a bullet to his shoulder, basically, because the elevator went up the floor and it like opened up at the time. So what he did in retaliation was he was the one who grabbed the gun and shot the defense attorney.
Oh my gosh.
And do you know how they figured it out?
How?
Because this guy, von Karmer, was a perfectionist. Like, he was like near perfectionist. He knew that if he went to a doctor to get the bullet taken out, there would be like a paper trail. Like, he got a bullet taken out, he got like something like that. Instead, he left the bullet inside of him. X-ray details, scanned him, and found the bullet with the exact ballistic markings from that gun.
That's
good
insane. That is awesome.
Yeah.
And he got sentenced to jail for the murder, and a 15-year-old case was solved just as the statute of limitations was running out. That's like when once the statute of limitations runs out, the file's like just discarded, basically. Like, we don't think about it, we don't it has no bearing on any present cases. And right as it was running out, like the last like month or so, when it was running out, this comes up, they solved the case. It took like the entire team of investigators to like solve this. They solved the case and figured out that he was the one behind it all because of that bullet that was still inside of him.
That's insane.
That is crazy. That is such a great story. Like, there was like climax to that story, there was like default, man. Like, I was like in it for the ride.
I didn't expect to say that story, but once I realized it was gonna start out, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a long ride.
Yeah, like buckle down. Ride and die, right? Ride and die.
It's kind of interesting, honestly, because like the kid Miles, basically, his life was basically torn for like years. He believed he was behind the death of his father. He believed that he was the one who killed his father because he threw the gun. He was the one who believed he would do it because like he was unconscious after the time. He didn't even remember anything. He only remembered after he woke up in the hospital room, and they said that his father was dead, basically. And the bailiff lost his job because he had to claim that he was so lucid, he just lost all memory. He couldn't think, he couldn't act, he couldn't do anything. The defense attorney died, basically. I mean,
it was crazy.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to my Treehouse Podcast, Episode 1. Haven't built it yet. I'm working on it.
Earthquakes in California are like insane.
Yeah.
I was on my way back to Cali where I was working at UCLA. The plane, it was going down to like the runway for like to like stop, you know, like how the plane goes down, it goes in runway and like slows down there. Well, I was going down there. Then it started like I just hear like a beep, 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 and it was like, sorry folks, we're aborting mission, and it just goes. I was in my seat like freaking out. I'm like, I'm gonna die. But apparently there's an earthquake that happened on the runway like as soon as we were about to land, and we couldn't land when the earthquake was happening. So we had to like abort mission apparently and go up. That was crazy. And the same flight, do you know what I saw?
What?
I saw blood above me. Like in like you know like where's the light is, like in like the light, and like you can call the attendant up there.
Yeah.
There's like little like 3 dots of blood there. It was a little, I don't know if it was blood, but it was something red and it looked like blood. And I'm like, and I don't know what I was thinking in my head. Like I looked at the person on my left, and like, I didn't say anything to him. I was like, I wanted to say like, do you see that blood right there? But I was like, do I talk to the person? Do I not? Like my social anxiety was kicking in. I'm like, fuck.
I think I would just say like.
Yeah,
I think I would just like point like.
What? Well, do you know what I thought when I saw the blood? I was like, bro, this is how I'm gonna die. It's a preposition. Like this blood, like it's from me, like my own blood when I die. And that thing happened. And I'm like, no, this is how I die. I actually literally thought I was gonna die. Like it was scary. That was interesting.
I don't know. Death is it's a complicated topic. It's a complicated thing. So many various things happen.
Oh yeah.
And even when people are like killed, even when people die, even when there's so much more behind it than I guess we really can think of, you know?
It's scary.
It's scary. A plane crash. I mean, would that be pretty quick, right? Like, well, it wouldn't be the worst way to go.
It wouldn't be the worst way
You
to
don't
go.
know how.
Yeah, because like you can kind of survive in a plane crash and be like, you know, like half like bleeding out. You're just like,
okay, that would be
nice.
People have been burned like badly too. Like it's happened.
Well, do you hear about the one plane crash? I forgot the girl's name, but her parents, they like were like, I read the story a while back. They were like bio majors, and like they did like a bunch of like scientific studies, like some forest, like Amazon forest, and around there. And they were in a plane ride, and the plane crashed. She was with her mom when they were trying to go to their study in the forest, like by themselves in a secluded area. And the plane crashed, and this girl was a lone survivor, and she was on like this, like she was in the middle of like this Amazon forest, like totally no clue what to do. She was just like trying to live her life, but she had a huge like cut on her right arm, like on her left arm, like which is like bleeding everywhere too, but her legs were fine. And she had like no food, so she like searched like the plane for food and everything like that, and all that fun stuff. But no, she just like trucked through the forest like for so long. Eventually, she found a log, got in the river, just kind of followed the river and tried to find society, and like eventually found a hut. And stayed in the hut forever before like she was on the brink of death. Like when like people found her, it was crazy. Yeah. So it's possible to survive a plane crash. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it's horrible because you don't know how it would happen. Because I've heard so many instances where people like burned so badly, and like areas where like the plane just like breaks. Like the worst plane crash that ever happened. Oddly enough, it happened well back in the past, in 1977, 12 times. It happened on a runway when 2 airplanes collided with each other.
Really?
Yes, it happened on a small island, Tenerife. It was kind of odd because they were supposed to go to another island, right? These are 2 planes from 2 different locations. One of them was flying from Miami, other one I think from the Netherlands, basically.
Oh yeah.
And these were vacationers, people who were going to this island for vacation, but there's a bomb threat called into that airport, basically. There was a bomb threat, they had to evacuate everyone, and basically flight traffic control said, you can't land at this airport anymore. We're gonna redivert you just somewhere else, basically. And so those planes both got diverted to this small island, basically.
Yeah.
So they were at this small island, they were just kind of just chilling because they couldn't go anywhere until that bomb threat was lifted. But what seemed like hours turned into like many hours, like tens of hours, and people were just sitting at the airport, like in the airplane. Then they have to deboard, get to the airport itself. It was a small, tiny airport. It's a small island, and then they had to go back on the plane just to get back off, and it was a bad process that took such a long time. Fatigue was setting in with all the pilots that were happening. There were like 10 planes, and this was a single 2-lane runway basically.
Yeah.
So one of the runways is literally closed just for the planes to like all park, and there's only one runway open to actually take off of. Basically. So finally the bomb threat was lifted. They could finally go. It spent a long time. It was pretty bad, and what happened was all these pilots are getting ready. They realize that they have lost a lot of time, and they need to get back quickly to their home destinations. Basically, otherwise what would happen is that the FAA would like mark them off for like excessive time, basically. So they all those planes, they load them up full of fuel, like every single, like they fill the entire tank of fuel up, basically. It's a slow process, but every single plane needs to go all the way down to the end of the runway, turn around, then they'll take off. Next plane, basically. And the whole idea is that like it's like an ongoing process. So it's like a kind of taxi route. This plane goes at the end, turns around. This plane turns off, and then goes behind that one, take off. So these were the last 2 planes that needed to take off. Fog started setting in. Visibility was bad. People were kind of irritated, but finally they were going. They were finally going home and all. So what happened was the first pilot basically went all the way down and then started turning, right? And the next pilot is going down. He needs to turn off over here and go behind him. What had happened was this guy he must have gotten impatient, or something must have hit him, because he decided, no, I'm just gonna take off. I'm sure this guy is just off the runway at this point. So he just started going full speed. This guy is still on the runway. He's still going, and he's like turning. And when the fog clears, he can see that he is still on the runway. The entire plane is still on the runway, trying to turn off. He like brings it all the way up, trying to take it off, but he can't do it. It kind of goes above the ground for a second and slams right into that plane. Into that plane, just barrels right through it. Not a single person on that plane that he was piloting survived. All 200 people died off of that plane, because they were going at like maybe like a solid like 170 miles an hour, and they just slam into that. Both planes are full of fuel. Everything that isn't hit in the initial impact catches on fire. Everything just inferno, basically. And the other plane that was kind of like going off, a few people did survive off of that when they were like in the tail section area that was already like over here, or like near the very front that was already kind of off the runway. And they just experienced like absolute horror, because the jet fuel, the fuel just melted all the metal, and it would just like drop to the ground, basically. And this woman is talking about how the fire was like reaching her legs, basically, and it was like so bad, and then she could feel like the seat and everything just melting around her, and she just like fell onto the runway, like the hard runway, with her like leg on fire, and it was like horrible, basically. And you just see fire and like burnt gas and rubber like all around you.
That's crazy.
And over there you can see the other plane like near destroyed, and like
That's insane.
and she just says like, because of the experience I can never fly anymore. Like I can't do it because it's traumatized me so much. Like I don't know how it would feel to obviously die in a plane crash because no one has ever experienced that. No, I mean, no one's ever like talked about it. People have experienced it, yes, but people have never like talked about like, here are my thoughts about dying.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. So,
Unfortunately,
like, afterlife and like, there's lots of dogs. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, that's just the one that comes to mind because I watched that documentary about it, and it just like that one mistake that happened. That's what they all say. Like the co-pilot that survived of the other plane that was like turning off said like we had like 12, 13 hours of just sitting there, like, and then this is the 1 second we wanted to finally leave. This is what happens. Like,
yeah, pilots have a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to idea. So that means like jet fuel is big. Like, jet fuel is strong enough to burn through steel.
Planes are made out of aluminum. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you that planes are made out of aluminum, not steel. Steel is too heavy to fly.
George Bush has some questions to answer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about that.
The tinfoil hat. Yeah.
What time is it actually?
Honestly, what time is it?
It's 4:08.
4:08. Bad time, good time to stop.
I think it's a good time to stop.
Good time to stop.
I think what we gotta do, we gotta research.
Research more stuff.
We gotta research
some more time.
So we have more time.
So next time,
we
9/11, right?
We have to look at documentaries. We have to look at all kinds of stuff. We gotta really research our stuff on this.
Well, we got projector.
We gotta know true crime too. Like,
True crime. Little true crime, little projector. You know, a little more right there.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining Tea Time with Trenton today. I hope you enjoyed our episode and like come join us next time. Subscribe, please, and have a good day. Right? Cheers.
My cup's empty.
A little help here.